95.7 The Game breaking news.
Air horns for everybody. Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN breaking that. Free agent forward Rudy Gay has agreed to a one-year deal with the Golden State Warriors. According to Rock Nation Sports, Rudy Gay will compete for the team's open roster spot in camp. This will be his 18th NBA season. Rudy Gay competing for a roster spot with the Golden State Warriors. And I think John Sackey, my producer over at NBC Sports Bay Area, said something. Hey, I just ran into Rudy Gay downtown. I think he texted that to me like last week. I was like, okay, Rudy Gay, great. But Rudy Gay's going to compete for a roster spot. Your thoughts, Shasky? Rudy Gay.
Sure.
You read out Dwight Howard.
Sure. Why not? I mean, they did work out 50 guys this summer.
They did, according to Mike Dunleavy Jr.
So he must be the best of the 50.
So last year, he played with the Utah Jazz, played in 56 games. Rudy Gay shot 38% from the floor, 25.4% from the three-point line. I'm not sure what he's 36 years old. He'll turn 37 August 17th of next year. Actually, he is 37. He's 37 now. He's 37 years old. Man, it feels like he was at UConn yesterday. Rudy Gay now signing with
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? It feels like he was at UConn yesterday. No, it does not. I call cap on that. What are you talking about?
He lost to George Mason.
Rudy Gay has been in the league forever.
Yeah, this is his 18th season, so he's going to compete for a roster spot.
Iggy thinks Rudy Gay's old.
I'm sure somebody out there, if not one or two people, maybe 3 to 500 to 5,000
on the Warriors now.
No, I'm not trying to laugh. Listen, man. I got to see him at media day. Don't be doing that. We may interview him next week. We may. So Rudy Gay's going to compete for a roster spot.
I'm here for it, though.
I'm sure some people are slamming the table right now saying, why couldn't that be Dwight Howard? So anyway, quick text, 415 Comcast Business Text line, because we love our city kids. Ramon Davis, the son of Raymond Davis, who's, by the way, hit me up on Facebook, said, thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Kentucky is undefeated. They're going to be hosting the Florida Gators this week.
Ooh.
Number 22.
SEC
if they
matchup.
win, they're going to be ranked in the SEC East. So anyway, we'll get through that.
And basketball school playing football. I like it.
I love it. And you know what else I love?
What's that?
Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk.
He's the best.
Back on the roast.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah,
he's back. He's back. He's back. And we love it. But before we bring him on, here's what he had to say about Brock Purdy last week. Now, I don't even know what this is. I must have missed this. But take it away, Spinodi.
I think this is part of it. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. Wouldn't be the first time. I think when you think of a franchise quarterback, you think of Joe Montana, Dan Marino, right? Brock Purdy is just kind of a weird name. It doesn't sound like a franchise quarterback name. Purdy's a little too close to Turdy. I just think people have a hard time looking at that name and saying that's a franchise quarterback. I know when I first saw that name,
that easily is the most ridiculous point you've ever made. That's easily the most ridiculous point you've ever made.
Yes.
That's absurd. That's one of the silliest things I've
guarantee you. I guarantee you I'm not the only person that's like, well, that's not a quarterback name.
It does feel like a running back name, but Mike Florio, where do you come up with this? I
kind of feel him on this.
You are the gift that keeps on giving. But today's show, before you reply, today's show, I want you to think about this as you give us your answer to that with Peter King. We're giving out a scouting report with Brock Purdy through 11 games, so we'll get to that in a second. But go ahead and respond to that soundbite, because that's the first time I ever heard it.
I wrote about this on Friday. It was part of a broader conversation raised by Peter about why people are reluctant to embrace Brock Purdy as a franchise quarterback. And I had given various other reasons, including, for example, last player taken in the draft, QB3 who got thrust into service, suffered the elbow injury in the NFC Championship game, so it dusts off this chronic concern that 49ers quarterbacks are cursed. So we went through all those reasons, and I threw that one on there at the end. And look, when I first saw his name, I did think, that's not really a quarterback name. But when you play well, all of a sudden what doesn't look like a quarterback name becomes a quarterback name. Ben Roethlisberger did not look like a quarterback name. And I remember back in 2004 when he got drafted thinking, my God, if this guy lasts, I'm going to have to figure out how to spell this damn name and type out 12 letters every time that we talk about Ben Roethlisberger. So And there's a much more nuanced psychological conversation that goes all the way back to the playground that we don't have time to get into. But yeah, look, we're trying to have fun. I like to yank Peter's chain from time to time. I like it when he fires off something like that. And we just had a good time. But there is a much broader conversation that it was part of that makes it all make more sense if you listen to the whole 15 or 20 minutes.
Look, I'm a video game player, and there are times I will draft players or not draft players based on the name. I'm with you on this one, Mike. There are certain guys. No, I am. I'm 100% with you, and I'm not teasing at all. There are certain names over time they become, crazy, unbelievable, like, Derek Jeter. Like, when you say Derek Jeter now, like, but like way back in the day, if I said to somebody, Bryce Harper's going to be awesome, like, little old Bryce is going to be good. Well, now we view Bryce different. I never thought of Bryce as some big bad baseball name.
You guys are weirdos. Both of you guys. You guys are crazy.
Well, and it all goes back to the question that Peter raised. Why aren't people more willing to embrace?
Yes.
I mean, Dick Butkus is a football name. Mike Ditka is a football name. And when you are looking at all these reasons as to why fans have been slow and media has been slow to say, hey, this guy's the real deal, that's just one of the reasons for it. I mean, I also acknowledge the possibility he could be the NFL's MVP this season.
He might. Wow.
He's producing the way he has, and the team keeps winning, and they're the number one seed in the NFC. That's the ticket to being the MVP of the NFL.
Is Tom Brady a football name or Jerry Rice a football name?
They became football names.
Okay, they became one. Okay.
He became one.
He became one.
Gotcha.
Like Brock Mannion, when you say Brock, I think of the Miami quarterback who wasn't good.
Right.
I think of Brock as like a non-quarterback position type player. I get what you're saying.
I understand
I think
it.
it's
Brock
funny.
is a fullback. It is funny. So we're asking our audience here today at 888-957-9570 here on the Border Roast, Mike. What would your scouting report be on Brock Purdy through 11 games?
Strengths and weaknesses.
Through 11 games. It could be both. Because a lot of people are scared in this market to critique Brock Purdy. If you say, boy, that was almost an interception, people come at us and, oh, you are haters. You guys hate Brock. And it's like, dude, relax. He almost threw a pick. It is what it is. What would your scouting report be on Brock through 11 games of his career?
Runs the offense incredibly well, which is the number one thing Kyle Shanahan is looking for. Some think that this is the Kirk Cousins, that Kyle has wanted. Someone who will just do what he's told. This goes back to 2011, after the lockout, when Kyle was the offensive coordinator in Washington. They asked Rex Grossman if he thought he could win the starting job in kind of a compressed time frame, and he said yes. And they said, why? And he said, because I will run this offense exactly the way that Kyle wants it. That's how you become his quarterback, and that's what Brock Purdy has done. And they kind of lucked into this guy with the last pick in the draft, but he's running the offense the way that Kyle Shanahan wants it to be run. And Kyle believes, given the way he game plans, given the way he sets up defenses, given the way he focuses on beating you with the run, the quarterback isn't as critical as it would be in other offenses. So running that offense extremely well is one of the key ingredients to letting the 49ers become what they can be. And they may have gotten to the Super Bowl last year and possibly won it with Brock Purdy if he'd stayed healthy because he runs the offense the way it's designed. The drawback, some deep ball inaccuracy, and we remember Super Bowl 54. Jimmy Garoppolo has Emmanuel Sanders wide open, championship throw, he misses him. And the durability question simply because of that elbow injury, which can happen to anyone when you are moving the arm one way and the defensive player is coming and hitting you moving in the other direction. That's not any sign of lack of durability. That's just crap happens. So those are the drawbacks, and I think it has fueled this. We need to wait and see. We need to wait and see. He needs to check more boxes, and based upon what they've done so far this year, he's checking those boxes. And if there's a team of destiny in the NFC, it feels like the 49ers. And if there's a team of destiny in the AFC, it feels like the Dolphins. Now, if it comes down to those two teams as the one seed, 2 is probably the MVP. But there's still a chance that Brock Purdy is going to get some serious consideration if he presides over this team, has good numbers, and the 49ers end up the one seed in the NFC. And right now, I would say they're the most likely team in the NFC to be the one seed.
Oh, wow. Wow, you think they're the most likely team to – okay. Well, wow, that's interesting to me because we all agree, like, getting that bye is super important. I was going to ask you about Lynch and Shanahan getting extensions. Obviously, they've been wildly successful. I just can't think of any sport outside of the Detroit Pistons whiffing on Darko Milicic. Like, they whiffed on the Trey Lance thing, and it hasn't hindered them at all. They got contract extensions. So what were your thoughts on those contract extensions?
Well, I don't know that they've been wildly successful. It's hard to say they've been wildly successful when they haven't won a Super Bowl. They've turned around a team that was extremely dysfunctional post-Jim Harbaugh. The Jim Tomsula year, the Chip Kelly year, and they had to get 6-year contracts on the way in the door just to restore the idea that we're going to stick with a regime for a little while here in San Francisco. The team really was circling the drain of dysfunction before those guys came along. But they have bungled the quarterback position. That is the asterisk on this tenure. They didn't scout Patrick Mahomes in 2017 because Kyle Shanahan thought he was signing Kirk Cousins the next year as a free agent. They somehow pivoted to Jimmy Garoppolo during the 2017 season and didn't go after Cousins, obviously, in 2018. Tom Brady wanted to come play for them in 2020, and they said no thank you. And then they saw Kyle got to sit and watch Super Bowl 55, Patrick Mahomes, the guy he didn't scout, against Tom Brady, the guy he didn't want, and I think that contributed to them making that desperate move up to number 3. They blew it with Trey Lance, the Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant. I hate that term, but that's what everybody calls the last guy taken in the draft. But they redeemed themselves that way, and I think one of the reasons they still have their jobs and were able to blow that pick as badly as they did and to trade up to get Trey Lance is because the team is otherwise so damn good. You know, you typically see bad teams being the ones that, number one, earn a high pick,
right,
and number 2, blow a high pick. Mm-hmm. So it's easier for the owners of those teams to say, time to get rid of these guys. It's a lot harder to hold John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan accountable with their jobs when the team is otherwise a Super Bowl contender year in and year out, which is what they've built. If they could just stabilize the quarterback position and have that quarterback step up and make big throw in big spot, it's a Super Bowl championship for the San Francisco 49ers, and it could come as soon as this year.
Mike Florio here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game. Without expanding on it, I do wonder, you talk about the move up to Trey Lance, and apparently there was a rumor they missed out on Matthew Stafford when Shanahan found out he was available. He went to dinner in Cabo. Sean McVay swooped him up. Were they ever in?
That was an inside job, though. That was an inside job between the Rams and the Lions. No one else was getting their hands on Stafford.
So I don't know this. This is just my speculation. For the package they gave up for Trey Lance, were the Niners ever in on Deshaun Watson before all the accusations, everything happened with Deshaun Watson down in Houston?
I don't think they ever were. I don't think they were. And I think it all happened so quickly that, number one, Deshaun Watson wants out. And then just as that trade opportunity had the window open in March of 2021,
right,
like, boom, here comes the allegation.
Right.
So the trade was done just about 10, 11 days after we learned of the first lawsuit against Deshaun Watson. So I don't know that they ever even had a chance to be in it.
Interesting.
Frankly.
Interesting.
So you know, it never came to fruition because he started getting hit with one lawsuit after another, and everybody waited a year. And by the next year, by 2022, they had Trey Lance and they had Jimmy G.
Right.
Even though they intended to trade him at the time, they weren't going to go after Deshaun Watson then.
Interesting. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk here on the Morning Rush on 95.7 The Game. When you look at this 49ers team that's 3-0 walking into a game against the Arizona Cardinals, who they won't overlook after what the Cardinals did to the Dallas Cowboys last Sunday, what unit is more feared right now, in your opinion, Mike? Is it the offense with all these weapons and they're going 30-30-30 in each of the first 3 games, or is it this defense led by Nick Bosa and Fred Warner?
I think it's the defense more than the offense, but not by much. This team, and my theory has been that John Lynch has a knack for finding guys who approach the game the way he did, where you got guys who just roll out of bed and run through a wall. And sometimes I think it gets guys in trouble, extending plays, pushing for every last inch. That's how Deebo Samuel got the wind knocked out of him last Thursday night when we all had a scare that he was actually injured. George Kittle fights for extra yardage. Christian McCaffrey fights for extra yardage. You know, everyone plays with no hesitation, full speed all the time. But I think that defense with Nick Bosa and the rest of the front, which is extremely disruptive and chaotic, I think that's the difference maker. And what have we seen in recent years? You know, you need to have a great offense to put yourself in position to get to a Super Bowl. But every few years, whether it was the Buccaneers in the 2020 season, the Broncos 5 years earlier, you have a defense that just suffocates the other team's offensive line and keeps the quarterback from making a difference. And the 49ers have that ingredient. If they can get to the Super Bowl and they can unleash those guys against whoever the quarterback is from the AFC champion, that becomes a very long day and a difficult day for that AFC representative to gain yards and score points. So right now the defense, but the offense not far behind.
Inside this bubble, everybody's got Purdy mania for obvious reasons. For your money, as someone outside this bubble that we're in right here, do you have more faith in Brock Purdy to lead this team from behind or in a game-winning situation than you did, let's say, Jimmy Garoppolo?
I never had much faith in Jimmy Garoppolo, and mainly because he couldn't stay healthy. When he played consistently, he played well, but at the end of the day, it just always feels like there's something missing, just like with Kirk Cousins. There's something missing with him. There's something missing with Jimmy G, and it's to be determined if Brock Purdy can win those games in those moments where it feels like it's going to be a loss, and he's able to flip the page, change the narrative, and go out there and turn a loss into a victory. That's all to be determined. I also feel good about the fact that Sam Darnold is the backup. I think if Sam Darnold would ever have to play, the offense would be fine. I think, it wasn't a surprise when we started hearing all this hype from the media out there about how great of a passer Sam Darnold is, and people thought they were nuts. Well, that was all coming from Kyle. Kyle loved Sam Darnold, and they would be in good hands if and when there's yet another quarterback injury, as we've seen, almost the norm for the 49ers over the past 5 or 6 years, except for 2019 when Garoppolo went wire to wire.
You brought up Kirk Cousins, and I can't help myself here, Mike, because I'm tired of hearing the name Kirk Cousins. I personally, as a fan, I don't want him quarterbacking my football team because I'm with you. There's something missing there, and the love affair that everybody gained for Kirk Cousins after the quarterback doc. I'm thinking the best thing about the quarterback doc was Patrick Mahomes. I don't care about Kirk Cousins and how tough he is. All these guys are tough. But is Brock Purdy made Kyle Shanahan move on from the thought of having Kirk Cousins quarterback his football team?
Yes, I think so. And this is the year that it gets cemented. Now, if Brock Purdy would suffer a season-ending injury at some point, and I hate even saying that because I never want to be accused of jinxing someone, but we know it happens in football. It happened to Aaron Rodgers 4 snaps into the season. But if Brock Purdy, for whatever reason, isn't the guy this year that we all think he can be, then maybe it's Kirk Cousins next year. I know at one point in the offseason I said there could be a tug-of-war in 2024 between the Rams and the 49ers for Kirk Cousins, because both Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan have worked with Cousins. They respect Cousins, but I still think there is something missing. And it rears its ugly head at the worst possible moment. We saw this past weekend. He didn't realize to go up and get the ball and spike it as the seconds were ticking away from the game. I don't care how many yards he's going to throw for this year. I care about whether or not he can win games in the clutch and whether or not he's truly driven to be one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. That whole I never work on Tuesdays during football season thing, he lost me with that one.
Thank you.
If you want to be great, Tom Brady said it himself. If you want to compete with me, you better be ready to surrender your life to this, because I am. And there's always going to be somebody, a coach like Bill Belichick, a quarterback like Tom Brady, that is willing to surrender 5 months out of the year, every waking moment, to being great. And if you don't do that, you're never going to be as great as you could be, and somebody else is going to beat you. So once that episode aired and he was kind of proud of it, I'm like, well, the Vikings can forget ever winning the Super Bowl with this guy, and it may be one of the reasons why there's a palpable vibe that the Vikings are done with him after this year.
Wow.
There's a lot of great teams with great coaches at the top. But if you were starting from scratch, just from scratch, okay, all things are equal, who are you taking above Kyle Shanahan to run your team?
Mike McDaniel. That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
Whoa. Former offensive coordinator. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? I would love to know why you feel that way.
Well, these guys are the masters at coming up with effective game plans. It all comes down to making sure your guys are healthy enough to execute the game plans, but they know how to orchestrate not just a game, but a whole season. That's what's going to fascinate me about the Dolphins, because the stuff we're seeing them do now, I have a feeling they're going to be doing different things later, because they're not just setting up the defense within the confines of a given game. They're setting up future defenses they're going to encounter later in the season with the stuff they're doing now. And it is a living, breathing, organic thing that you have to have a full plan for. And it has to shift and change because you have to stay one step ahead of what the defenses are going to do to figure out what you're doing. And you kind of engineer that into how you come up with your game plans and how you believe teams are going to defend you based upon the stuff you've already done. And I think McDaniel and Shanahan are the top two right now at that. So if I take anybody ahead of Shanahan, it would be Mike McDaniel, and I'm not even sure that I would take McDaniel ahead of Shanahan. It might be a coin flip at the end of the day. And now,
Andy Reid. I'm surprised you to say Andy Reid in Kansas City. What he's been cooking up over there.
Oh, well, it helps to have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And you give Patrick Mahomes to either of these two guys, and I mean, they're done without the best quarterbacks in football.
Mike, Andy Reid's done it for a long time.
Interrupt you. I don't even. But I think it's very powerful what you said because I do think unfairly you get labeled as maybe a Shanahan cynic or hater or however people want. Like I know you don't care, but like I think that was very powerful what you said. There's one or two coaches in the league that you're thinking about ahead of Shanahan. I think that shows how much you respect him. I guess is what I was.
Well, and when I respect people, I hold them to a higher standard. So that's why criticism gets confused is, hey, in this day and age, you can't say anything critical of someone without being labeled as a hater.
So true.
You can't have an honest opinion that isn't overly flowery about someone without, you're just a hater. You're just jealous. You're just that. No, I have an opinion. And my opinion is there are areas where Kyle Shanahan needs to improve. Most specifically, and this may be solved for now, but the thing that's kept him from winning at least 2 Super Bowls is the way he's handled the quarterback position.
Totally agreed there.
That's a fair criticism. That doesn't mean I hate him. That just means I have eyes and ears.
Florio, we've done the same thing on this show. Hold it, because a lot of people out here in the Bay Area say, we've got our Bill Walsh, we got our Bill Walsh. Well, be careful there. Bill Walsh is one of the greatest coaches of all time in any sport. And we're comparing Kyle Shanahan. Let him win one first, and why he hasn't won one, you're right on the money there, is the handling of the quarterback position. Just go get your guy that feels like he has his guy right now. Real quick, before we let you go, what is the one team? What is the team that no one has paid enough attention to yet? Who's that one team that's going to surprise people by the end of the season?
Wow, that's a good question, which is code for I don't have the answer to. I'd say the Browns, just because they looked so bad last Monday night, and what they're able to do defensively, how they shut down and embarrass the Tennessee Titans. If Deshaun Watson can get back to playing like he was in 2020, and he's starting to show signs of it, the Browns are a team that need to be taken very seriously this year.
Yeah, they've got great secondary play, even though they've been banged up early, and Myles Garrett's a monster. That's a good call.
Jim Schwartz coaching that defense. He's a damn good defensive coordinator. No doubt about that.
Mike
Florio. It's good to have you back on the Bay Area Sports Leader, Mike. It's been far too long.
All right, thanks, guys. Great talking to you.